He told me I didn't fit the atmosphere, that my hands were too rough for his fancy Thanksgiving dinner. In the house I paid for, he thought the old carpenter was just a worn-out checkbook, easy to discard. He was about to find out I don't just build houses. I demolish them too. The smell of sawdust usually calmed my nerves. It was the scent of my life, 40 years spent building things. I'm Thomas Miller. I'm a carpenter. It's honest work. It built the home I shared with Sarah. It paid the endless medical bills when she got sick. I wiped my hands on a rag locking up my workshop. The exhaustion was a heavy blanket, but it was worth it. My daughter Lisa was happy. That's what I told myself, anyway, but a cold realization was starting to dawn on me. I still live in the house I built for Sarah and me. It's sturdy, maybe a little outdated, no glass walls or cold steel, but every beam I laid, every nail I hammered, was a promise of safety, warmth, family. But promises, I was learning, could be broken easier than seasoned oak. The foundation of my life was cracking. Sarah's been gone 3 years now. Cancer took her, slowly, painfully, and then all at once. Since then, the house feels too big. The silence screams at me. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this crazy world, because lately loneliness was the only thing keeping me company. Thanksgiving was Sarah's favorite. She was the warmth, the laughter, the glue. The house would smell like cinnamon and roasting turkey for days. It was when our family felt strongest. The tradition was supposed to continue. That's what I thought. Lisa was all I had left, but I was starting to fear I had lost her too. Lisa, my little girl. She used to follow me around the workshop, oversized safety goggles slipping down her nose, handing me screws, grinning like she'd just built a skyscraper. But things changed when she married David 5 years ago. The light in her eyes started to dim, replaced by something harder, something colder, something that looked a lot like David. David Sterling was a man in a hurry. He worked downtown. Some big investment firm, Walker Financial, always talking about deals, mergers, climbing the ladder. He wore expensive suits that always looked too tight. He had a habit of adjusting his cufflinks, shiny, silver things. He'd adjust them when he felt superior, which was most of the time he was around me. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. He looked at my house, my workshop, my life, as if it were something small, something quaint, something from a past he was eager to escape. He didn't understand that some things are built to last, not just flipped for profit. He saw value in dollars, never in memories, and never in sweat. They bought a house last year, a new development on the other side of town, one of those modern monstrosities. All gray stone and glass. A lawn like a golf course. It lacked character. It lacked warmth. It was a showroom, not a home. And it was built on a lie. I helped them with the down payment. It wasn't a small amount. It was most of the savings Sarah and I had put aside. Our retirement. Our travel dreams. But it was more than just savings. And that was the secret I kept buried deep in my chest. A secret that was slowly suffocating me. I remember the day I transferred the funds. My stomach pinched with anxiety. The remaining balance looked terrifyingly small. But Lisa was my daughter. I wanted her to have everything. I never expected to be paid back. But I also never expected to be shut out. I thought I was investing in her happiness, in our future as a family. I didn't realize I was funding my own obsolescence. I was paying them to forget me, and the price was higher than anyone knew. It was the Monday before Thanksgiving. I was in my workshop, finishing a rocking horse for a neighbor's grandchild. The air was crisp, the November sky, a pale, unforgiving blue. The town was slowing down for the holiday, but the anxiety in my chest was speeding up. I realized I hadn't heard from Lisa about Thursday. Usually we'd have planned the menu by now. Sarah always insisted on finalizing the menu a week in advance. A small tradition, but it mattered. I wiped my hands on a rag and picked up the phone. The silence from her felt ominous. I dialed her number. I smiled, thinking about the pumpkin pie, Sarah's secret recipe, the one with the hint of ginger that made it special. The phone rang and rang and rang. Each unanswered ring felt like a small rejection. My smile faded. The familiar anxiety crept in. I almost hung up. Finally, she picked up. "Hello?" Her voice was sharp, rushed. I could hear traffic. Loud, thumping music. She sounded distracted, busy. Like I was interrupting something important. Too busy for me. The thought stung. "Hey, sweetheart. It's Dad," I said. I leaned against the workbench. The wood was cool beneath my fingertips. "Dad, hi. I'm kind of in the middle of something," she said quickly. "No warmth, just impatience." I know. Just calling to finalize things for Thursday," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Do you want me to bring the pie? And should I come over around 2?" There was a pause. It stretched out, thin and brittle. It wasn't a comfortable silence. It was the kind of silence that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. The silence that precedes bad news. I waited. The silence hummed with unspoken words. I knew what was coming. "Oh, Dad," she started. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. Her voice adopted a strained brightness. The tone she used when she was about to deliver a disappointment she didn't want to own. The tone David used when explaining why my truck shouldn't be parked in their driveway. "About Thursday, what is it?" "Is everything okay?" I asked. My heart pounded a little faster. "Did the furnace break? I can come take a look at it." I know those new high-efficiency models can be tricky. I was always the fixer, the builder. I was desperate to fix this. "No, Dad, everything's fine. The house is fine." She sighed. A small, sharp sound. "It's just, David and I are hosting a lot of people this year." It got a little complicated. Complicated? That word hung in the air, heavy and cold. A word used to disguise the truth. Complicated? That's great. I forced a chuckle. The more the merrier, right? That's what your mother always said. I don't mind helping with the dishes. I can carve the turkey, whatever you need. I was trying to find my place in her complicated life. I was failing. "No, Dad, it's not that." Another sigh, this one longer, impatient. It was a sound that stung more than she could know, a sound that dismissed my offer of help, my desire to contribute, my desire to belong. "We're actually over capacity," she said. Her voice was tight now. "The dining room table is completely full. We hired a caterer. It's all very precise. Precise, like a business transaction, not a family dinner." I frowned. Over capacity? Their house was huge. The dining room, alone, was bigger than my living room. They weren't talking about chairs. They were talking about me. "Lisa, honey, I can sit on the couch," I said, gripping the phone tighter. "I don't need a fancy seat at the table. I just want to be there, with you." My voice cracked slightly. I was begging. I hated myself for it. "Dad, you don't understand," she snapped. The sudden coldness in her tone hit me like a slap. The impatience had turned into irritation. The irritation into something colder, something David-shaped. "This isn't just a family dinner," she continued. Her words clipped. "This is an important event for David. We have some very important guests coming. It needs to be perfect. The atmosphere needs to be right." The atmosphere. She meant me. I wasn't right. I was the sawdust, the past they were trying to erase. Important guests? Who? My voice was quiet now. "David's parents, John and Susan, are flying in from Boston," she said. The stress in her voice was palpable. I remembered John and Susan Sterling. They looked at me like I was the hired help at the wedding, and David invited his boss, Mr. Walker, the CEO of Walker Financial. She said, his name like it was holy. "It's a huge deal, Dad. This could mean a massive promotion for David. A partnership even. The knot tightened. They chose his parents over me. They chose a business associate over me. They chose ambition over family. And I knew, deep down, there was something more David needed from this promotion. Something desperate. So, what are you saying, Lisa?" My voice was steadier than I felt. I wanted her to say the words. I wanted her to hear how ugly they sounded. She sighed again. A practiced sound of exasperation, as if explaining a simple concept to a slow child, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Dad, I'm saying we don't have enough room for you this year." The words hung in the air. Cold, sharp, We had to prioritize David's parents since they traveled so far, she rushed to explain. And obviously Mr. Walker and his wife. Obviously, I was at the bottom of the list, below strangers. I couldn't breathe for a second. The workshop was suddenly dead silent. The air felt thin, cold. You're uninviting me? To Thanksgiving? My voice was barely a whisper. The words tasted like ash. We're not uninviting you, Dad, she said, defensive now, annoyed that I wasn't making this easy for her. We just don't have the space. It's 1 year. I'm sorry, but our hands are tied. Space. It wasn't about space. It was about me, my blue-collar job, my sawdust-covered clothes, my old Ford truck. I didn't fit the image David was trying to project. I was an inconvenience, an embarrassment. I thought about the sacrifices. The weekends I spent framing houses in the freezing cold, so she could go to private school. The nights worrying about college tuition, and the down payment. The money that didn't just come from savings. The secret I held tight. The secret that was destroying me. I thought about Sarah, and how heartbroken she would be. I looked at the photo taped to my toolbox. Lisa. 5 years old, wearing a tiny tool belt, grinning. Where did that sweet girl go? When did ambition replace affection? The betrayal was so clean, so precise. It almost took my breath away, but I didn't say any of that. I wouldn't let her hear the hurt. I wouldn't give David the satisfaction. The exhaustion washed over me. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just an old man in the way. I forced a smile onto my face, even though she couldn't see it. Okay, I said, my voice flat, emotionless. Okay, Lisa, you enjoy your dinner. Thanks, Dad. I knew you'd understand, she said. The relief in her voice was palpable. Sickening. We'll bring you leftovers on Friday. Leftovers. Like a dog begging for scraps. I hung up the phone, silent thought. I don't understand. I will never understand. The silence of the house was suffocating. I walked into the living room, sat in my old armchair. I looked at the empty chair beside me. Sarah's chair. They don't have room for me, Sarah, I whispered to the empty room. Our little girl doesn't have room. Tears finally came, hot and heavy. I didn't wipe them away. I let the grief wash over me. But beneath the grief, something else was stirring. Anger. The next few days were a blur. Gray November skies. Profound loneliness. The rejection wasn't a sudden stab anymore. It was a dull, heavy ache. It was the accumulation of small slights. The way David would talk over me, adjusting his cufflinks, dismissing my opinions with a condescending chuckle. That's cute, Thomas, he'd say. But in the real world, they were embarrassed by me. That was the truth. I was a liability. But I was realizing that David might be the biggest liability of all. Tuesday afternoon, I needed to go to the bank. I needed to make sure I could cover the bills this month. The secret I kept Lisa was weighing heavily on me. I didn't just give them my savings. I took a second mortgage on my house. The house I built for Sarah. I risked everything so they could have their glass mansion. And now I was struggling to make the payments. The interest rates were brutal. I was drowning in debt. The bank was busy. I waited in line. I saw a familiar face at one of the desks. Mark Jensen. He was the loan officer who handled my second mortgage. Young guy, sharp suit, always smiling, but the smile never reached his eyes. He saw me and waved me over. Mr. Miller, good to see you, he said, his voice too loud. Everything okay with the payments? I felt my face flush. Everything's fine, Mark. Just doing some banking. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Glad to hear it. That's a hefty payment every month. He shuffled some papers on his desk, especially for a house you don't even own. I froze, the blood drained from my face. What do you mean, the down payment? Mark said, looking uncomfortable. For your daughter and son-in-law, David Sterling, right? He handled the closing. I nodded slowly, my heart pounding. He was very particular about the paperwork, Mark continued. Insisted your name not be anywhere on the deed. Said it was cleaner, that way for their financing. He paused. I thought it was strange, given you provided the bulk of the funds. But he said you insisted that you wanted it to be a clean gift. I never insisted on that. I never even discussed it. David handled the paperwork. Lisa told me not to worry about the details. I had no claim to the house I paid for. I'd been erased. Is that right? My voice was tight. Barely a whisper. Yeah, and he was in a real hurry, Mark added, seemingly unaware of the bomb he just dropped. Kept talking about needing the funds cleared immediately. Seemed stressed. Mentioned something about covering some speculative investments that went south. Margin calls, I think. David was in financial trouble, serious trouble. That explained the desperation for the promotion. It explained why impressing Mr. Walker was so important. It explained everything. I thanked Mark and walked out of the bank. My mind was racing. The betrayal felt deeper now. It wasn't just thoughtlessness. It was calculated, malicious. David had used me. He had manipulated Lisa. He had secured his future with my money, likely using most of it to cover his own debts, and then erased me from the equation. The ache in my chest turned into a burning anger. He hadn't just disrespected me, he had stolen from me. I needed air. I stopped at a coffee shop downtown. The place was filled with young professionals, suits and laptops. David's world. I sat in the corner with my coffee. I heard a voice from the table next to me. I heard David Sterling is hosting James Walker for Thanksgiving. Sterling? That guy is a snake. I looked over. 2 women were talking. One of them, wearing a sharp blazer, noticed me looking. She offered a small smile. Sorry, didn't mean to be loud, she said. Do you know David Sterling? I asked. My voice casual. The woman laughed. A bitter sound. I work at Walker Financial. Everyone knows Sterling. I'm Sarah Jenkins. I used to be on his team. Used to be? I prompted. Sarah Jenkins leaned forward. He stole my biggest client, pushed me out of the deal, then took all the credit. He's ruthless. He'll step on anyone to get ahead. She shook her head. He's gunning for that partnership. But honestly, he's reckless. Takes too many risks. His numbers are smoke and mirrors. If Mr. Walker knew the truth about his portfolio, he'd be fired, not promoted. The pieces clicked into place. The financial trouble, the desperation, the stolen money, the manipulation. David wasn't just an arrogant jerk. He was a fraud, and I was the foundation of his fraud. I thanked Sarah Jenkins and left the coffee shop. The cold November air felt good against my hot face. The truth was out there, and it was ugly. Wednesday evening, I went for a walk. I saw my neighbor Eleanor Vance tending to her garden. She was an older woman, observant, kind. She knew Sarah well. Thomas, she called out, her voice gentle. You look like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. I leaned against the fence. I told her everything. The uninvitation, the second mortgage, the deed, David's lies, his financial trouble. Eleanor listened silently. Her face hardened with anger. That man is a parasite, she spat. And Lisa? She's been blinded by his ambition. He's isolated her from everyone who truly loves her. He's controlling her, Thomas. She looked at me, her eyes fierce. Sarah always said you were the strongest man she knew, Thomas. It's time you remembered that. You don't just build things. You protect them. Protect your legacy. Protect Sarah's memory. And protect your daughter from that monster. Her words resonated deep inside me. It was time to stop mourning and start fighting. Thanksgiving morning arrived. Cold and bleak, I woke up in an empty house. The silence was deafening. Usually the house would be filled with warmth, anticipation. Today there was only silence, and the cold realization of the truth. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, looked at the empty chairs. The hours ticked by slowly. Loneliness is a heavy blanket. But today the anger kept me warm. I tried to watch the parade, the bright colors, the loud music. It just made me feel worse. It was a celebration of family. A family I'd been systematically removed from by a con artist. Around noon, I couldn't stand the silence anymore. I needed to act. I went into the kitchen, pulled out Sarah's recipe box. A small wooden box I'd made for her, carved with her initials. I found the card for her pumpkin pie. The handwriting was fading, but the memories were sharp. I started cooking, not because I was hungry, but because it was a ritual, a way to connect with her, with the traditions they were trying so hard to forget. I measured the flour, the sugar, the spices, the hint of ginger. As the pie baked, the house filled with the scent of cinnamon and nutmeg. I felt a shift inside me. The anger solidified into resolve, a cold, steady determination. I wasn't going to spend Thanksgiving alone. I wasn't going to let them erase me. I wasn't going to let David win. I looked at the pie. Golden brown. Perfect. I was going to deliver it. I wasn't planning to crash their dinner. I wasn't planning to cause a scene. I just wanted to look my daughter in the eye. I wanted her to see me, really see me, and I wanted David to know that I knew the truth, that his reign of terror was over. If this story is hitting home for you, if you've ever felt underestimated or cast aside, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe. It helps our channel grow and reminds us that we aren't alone in our struggles. I went into the bedroom, changed my clothes. I put on a clean shirt, a nice pair of slacks. The watch Sarah had given me for our 30th anniversary. I looked in the mirror. I saw an old man, lines around my eyes, hands roughened by years of labor. But I also saw a man who had worked hard, lived honestly, loved deeply, a man who built things to last, and a man who was ready to tear down the facade of lies. The drive to Lisa's house was tense. The closer I got to the new development, the more my anxiety grew. The neighborhood was quiet, sterile, artificial, expensive cars lined the streets. It felt like a movie set, not a real place where people lived. As I turned onto her street, I almost turned back. A wave of doubt washed over me. Was I just making things worse? Was I inviting humiliation? I pulled over. My hands gripped the steering wheel. My knuckles white. I could just go home. It would be easier. Safer.
All over time.
Silent thought. What if she hates me forever? What if I lose her completely? But the thought of them laughing, celebrating, while I sat alone, struggling to pay the mortgage on the house they'd me from, the thought of David getting away with stealing my life savings, it fueled my determination. Eleanor's words echoed in my mind. Protect your legacy. I took a deep breath, kept driving. The houses were massive, lit up like cruise ships against the darkening afternoon sky. I parked my old Ford truck on the street. It felt out of place among the BMWs and Mercedes filling Lisa's driveway. My old, reliable truck against the shiny symbols of their ambition. A stark contrast. Music and laughter drifted from the open windows. The house was glowing, a beacon of success. Sophistication. I walked slowly towards the house. My heart pounded in my chest. My hands were shaking slightly, but I held the pie carrier steady. At the front door I hesitated. Through the large bay window I could see them, gathered in the foyer, holding champagne glasses. Lisa looked beautiful, a shimmering gold dress, but her smile was tight, artificial. She kept tucking her hair behind her ear, a nervous habit I recognized from childhood. She was anxious. David was holding court, smug, arrogant, gesturing expansively. He adjusted his cufflinks. A gesture of superiority. I saw David's parents, John and Susan, sipping wine, looking around the house with approval. Their expressions mirrored their son's arrogance. The sight of their perfect party almost broke my resolve. I felt small, insignificant, a trespasser. But then I looked at the pie in my hands. Sarah's pie. I had to do this. For her. For me. I raised my hand to knock, but before I could, another car pulled up. A sleek, black Rolls-Royce. It glided to a stop in front of the house. Silent, imposing, my breath caught. I recognized the car. It belonged to James Walker, the CEO of Walker Financial, the guest of honor. The driver got out, opened the back door. An older man stepped out, impeccably dressed in a dark suit, followed by an elegant woman, Cynthia Walker. Mr. Walker was tall, silver hair, an air of quiet authority. He surveyed the house, his expression unreadable. I watched as David rushed out of the house, practically bowing as he greeted them, his voice loud, overly enthusiastic. False, Mr. Walker, Cynthia, welcome. We are so thrilled you could make it. David's voice boomed across the lawn. Lisa was right behind him, her face radiant, eager to impress. This was the man they were desperate to impress. The man they had prioritized over me. The man David was desperate to fool. I waited until they had gone inside. The foyer cleared. Everyone moved towards the dining room. The moment of truth. It was time. I walked up the stone path. My legs felt heavy, every step a struggle against the urge to retreat. As I reached the door, I heard David's voice, loud and clear through the thick oak door. Mr. Walker, we are so honored to have you here. This house, this life, it's everything we dreamed of. Then, the words that pierced my heart. We built this from the ground up. The irony was painful. This house, this life, it was built on the foundation of my sacrifice. My second mortgage, my sweat. He built nothing. He only took the urge to scream, to expose their hypocrisy. It was overwhelming, but I suppressed it. I would maintain my dignity. I would let the truth speak for itself. And the truth was about to demolish his world. I took a deep breath, knocked on the door, loudly 3 times. The laughter inside died instantly. The room fell silent. I could feel the tension radiating through the door. I heard footsteps approaching. Quick, irritated. The door swung open. It was Lisa. Tension builds. When she saw me, her face turned pale. The strained smile vanished, replaced by pure horror. Sharp impact. "Dad?" she gasped.
"What are you doing here?"
Silent reaction. Her shock quickly turned to anger. Her eyes narrowed. She looked at me not as a father, but as a threat. "I told you not to come," she hissed. She stepped outside, partially closing the door behind her, as if trying to hide me from her guests, as if I were a stain on her perfect evening. "I brought pie," I said simply, holding it out to her. "Your mother's recipe." "Tension builds," she whispered frantically, glancing over her shoulder, tucking her hair nervously. Sharp impact. "You can't be here. We're about to eat. The guests are here." "You're embarrassing me." Silent reaction. Embarrassing her. The word hung in the cold air. It stung, but it also fueled my resolve. "Please, Dad, just leave," she begged. Her eyes were pleading, but not with love, with fear. Fear of David, fear of losing face. David appeared behind her, a glass of wine in his hand. His face was flushed. When he saw me, he scowled. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. He looked me up and down, my old clothes, my worn shoes, the calloused hands that held the pie. "Thomas, get out of here. Now." His voice was low, threatening. "I just wanted to drop this off," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to hold on to the last shred of my dignity. "Lee, tension builds." David sneered. His mask slipped, revealing the cruelty underneath. He adjusted his cufflinks, a gesture of dismissal. Sharp impact. "We don't need your charity food. We have a catered meal, a 5-star chef. We don't need your pathetic pie." Silent reaction. Pathetic. My wife's legacy. Pathetic. The anger flared, hot and sharp. He reached for the pie carrier, intending to take it, throw it away. I saw the contempt in his eyes. I pulled it back instinctively. "Don't touch that," I said, my voice dangerously low. The sudden steel in my tone surprised him. He hesitated, but his arrogance quickly returned. "Are you threatening me, old man? In my own house?" He emphasized the word my, the house I wasn't even on the deed for. "It might be your house on paper, David," I said, my voice clear now. "But we both know who paid for it, and we both know I'm not on the deed because you made sure of it." David paled slightly. He didn't think I knew. His eyes darted nervously. "I'm asking you to show some respect," I continued. "Respect for me, respect for her memory. Respect for her memory. Respect." David laughed. A cruel, ugly sound. We said there's no room. How hard is that to understand? This is an important dinner, not a soup kitchen. Tension builds. He leaned closer, his voice dripping with venom, his breath hot and sour with wine. Sharp impact. We don't have space for failures. Silent reaction. Failures. The man who built his life. A failure. The man who stole my savings. Calling me a failure. Lisa grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Dad, please just go home. You're ruining everything. You're ruining David's career. They started yelling then, loudly. They didn't care who heard. Get out of here. David bellowed, we don't want you here. You're a nobody, a washed-up carpenter who can't take a hint. The commotion drew the attention of the guests. I could see faces peering out from the dining room. David's parents, John and Susan, looking smug, superior. I stood there, frozen, humiliated. The rejection. The cruelty, the disrespect. It was overwhelming. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I should have stayed home. The urge to run was overwhelming. I saw the pity in the eyes of the guests. I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I was about to turn and leave, defeated. But then I remembered David's words. A washed-up carpenter, a failure. My pride, my sense of self-worth, wouldn't let me retreat. I stood my ground, meeting his gaze with defiance. I would not be broken. I helped you buy this house, I said, my voice clear, strong, ringing with authority. Then I revealed the secret I had kept for too long. I took a second mortgage on my own home, so you could have this. Lisa gasped. She didn't know. The truth hit her hard. Her eyes widened in shock. Dad? A second mortgage? She whispered, horrified. David glared at me, his face red with rage. You old fool, you think that gives you the right to barge in here? It gives me every right, I said, my voice steady. Especially since you didn't use it all for the house, did you, David? You used it to cover your bad investments. Your margin calls, your sacrifice, David retorted, his voice dripping with contempt. You gave us a little money. Big deal. I'm the one who earned this lifestyle. I'm the one who built this success. He pointed a finger at me. You're just a burden. Now leave, before I call the police. The audacity, threatening to call the police on me, in the house I paid for. But then, a voice cut through the tension. A strong, calm voice. What seems to be the problem here? Mr. Walker stepped out from the dining room. He looked at the scene unfolding on the porch, his expression deeply troubled. The man whose favor David so desperately craved, the man who was about to change everything. David's demeanor changed instantly. He straightened up, his arrogance replaced by nervous energy. His aggressive posture melted away. Mr. Walker, David stammered, stepping away from me, trying to block me from view. He adjusted his cufflinks nervously. I am so sorry about this disturbance. He lowered his voice, trying to sound sincere. This is just my father-in-law. He's a bit confused. He wasn't invited. Then the final betrayal. He gets these episodes sometimes. He's making up stories about money. It's nonsense. Confused. Episode. Another label to dismiss me. They were trying to paint me as unstable, incompetent, to discredit my accusations. Mr. Walker ignored David. He looked at me, really looked at me. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if trying to recognize me. His gaze was discerning, intelligent. Cynthia Walker stood beside him, her expression mirroring her husband's concern. Have we met before, sir? He asked. His voice polite, curious. I looked at him. He seemed vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place him. I had built houses for hundreds of people over the years. I don't think so, sir, I said politely. What is your name? He asked. Thomas Miller, I said. Mr. Walker's eyes widened, a look of disbelief, followed by recognition, washed over his face. Thomas Miller, he repeated, his voice filled with emotion. The carpenter, the man who builds with integrity. I froze. I remembered him now. He wasn't the CEO of a massive corporation then. He was a young man, just starting out, a pregnant wife. a dream of building his first house. It was 30 years ago. He was passionate, driven, but naive about the construction business. "James?" I whispered. "James Walker?" Mr. Walker smiled. A warm, genuine smile. "It's good to see you, Thomas. It's been too long." Cynthia Walker smiled too. "Thomas, it really is you." He turned to David and Lisa. His expression shifted, from surprise to stern authority. The temperature on the porch seemed to drop several degrees. "You told me this man was confused," he said to David, his voice dangerously low. "You told me you didn't have room for him, and now you accuse him of lying." David and Lisa stood frozen, their mouths agape, unable to speak. The other guests had gathered in the hallway, watching the scene unfold. The silence was absolute. "Let me tell you a story," Mr. Walker said, his voice resonating in the sudden silence. He turned to address the guests, but his eyes remained fixed on me. 30 years ago, my wife and I were expecting our first child. We had saved every penny to build our dream house. We were young, ambitious, but we made a terrible mistake. We hired a contractor, a big firm, to build it. But they were crooks. They cut corners. They used substandard materials. They tried to cheat us at every turn. I remembered the project. It was a mess. The foundation was cracked. The framing was weak. It was a death trap. We were desperate. The house was half built, structurally unsound. We were running out of money. We were facing financial ruin. Cynthia Walker stepped forward. "We were terrified," she added, her voice soft but clear. We thought we had lost everything. A friend suggested we hire a local carpenter to inspect the work, Mr. Walker continued. "Someone honest, someone who knew what they were doing. That carpenter was Thomas Miller." He pointed at me. Thomas came in and immediately saw the problems. The shoddy framing, the leaking roof, the dangerous wiring. He didn't just inspect the work. He took over the project. His voice grew stronger. He fired the corrupt contractor. He worked day and night, the weekends included, to fix the mistakes, often absorbing the cost of the materials himself, because he knew we were broke. I remembered Sarah bringing him coffee late at night. As I struggled to reinforce the foundation, I couldn't let their dream die. It wasn't about the money. It was about doing the right thing. "He built us a beautiful home," Mr. Walker said, his voice thick with emotion. "A safe home, a home built with honesty and integrity. When I tried to pay him for the extra work, once we were back on our feet, he refused. I remembered what I told him. 'Just build a good life here, James. That's payment enough.'" Mr. Walker looked at me, tears glistening in his eyes. "We did build a good life there, Thomas. That house was the foundation of everything that followed. My success, my company. Walker Financial." He paused, looking around the opulent foyer of Lisa and David's house. "It all started there, because you showed me the true meaning of integrity." The silence in the room was deafening. Lisa was crying openly now, her makeup running down her face. She looked at me, her eyes filled with shame and regret. The realization of her betrayal, amplified by the knowledge of my secret sacrifice, shattered her composure. David looked like he was about to be sick. The blood had drained from his face. He was pale, trembling. His world was collapsing. Mr. Walker turned to David, his voice cold as steel. The warmth was gone, replaced by the icy fury of a man who values loyalty above all else.
"David, you work for me. You talk about investments, about growth, about success. You talk about building wealth."
His eyes narrowed. "But you don't understand the first thing about true value. You don't understand the foundation upon which success is built." He gestured towards the house. "You live in this beautiful house, which I now understand your father-in-law financed by taking a second mortgage on his own home." David flinched. The truth was out, exposed for everyone to hear. "And you treat the man who embodies the values I admire most, honesty, integrity, compassion, like a pariah." Mr. Walker's voice boomed with authority. "You disrespect your own family, the very foundation of character. You call him a washed-up carpenter, a failure. And these accusations about misused funds, Mr. Walker continued, his gaze piercing, about covering bad investments? Given your character, I find them very credible. He paused, his expression hardening. I've been hearing rumors about your financial instability, David. Your reckless trading, the smoke and mirrors you call a portfolio. David gasped. The truth, Sarah Jenkins told me, was known. David tried to defend himself, stuttering, his voice trembling with fear. Sir, I assure you, this is a misunderstanding. We hold Thomas in the highest regard. It was just a mistake, a lapse in judgment. Mr. Walker cut him off with a sharp gesture. Do not insult my intelligence. I heard what you said. I saw how you treated him. There is no excuse for such cruelty, no excuse for such arrogance, and certainly no excuse for financial misconduct. The finality in his tone was devastating. I thought you were a smart man, David. A man with potential. A man worthy of a partnership. Mr. Walker shook his head in disgust. But I see now that you are nothing but a shallow, entitled fool. Mr. Walker continued, a man who values status over loyalty, ambition over respect. A fraud. He looked David straight in the eye, delivered the final blow. I cannot, in good conscience, employ someone who treats their family with such disdain. I cannot trust someone who disrespects the very foundation upon which his life is built. You're finished, David. I don't care how good you think you are. I cannot have someone with such poor judgment and lack of character representing Walker Financial. Clean out your desk on Monday. You're fired, and my auditors will be looking very closely at your accounts. David's knees buckled. He literally fell to the floor, his face buried in his hands. The sound that escaped his lips was a strangled sob. Lisa sank down next to him, sobbing uncontrollably, her shimmering gold dress pooling on the cold floor. They were broken, humiliated, exposed in front of everyone they wanted to impress. Their carefully constructed facade shattered in an instant. Mr. Walker looked at them with disdain. Get up, both of you. You don't deserve to be kneeling in front of me. The only person you should be kneeling in front of is your father. He turned to Lisa, his face etched with profound disappointment. And you, this is your father, the man who risked everything for you. How could you forget him? How could you discard him so easily? Shame on you. The silence in the room was absolute. The other guests stared at the scene, horrified, ashamed. David's parents, John and Susan, looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Their smug superiority evaporated, replaced by shame. Mr. Walker turned back to me, his expression softening. He took the pie carrier from my hands. Thomas, he said, his voice filled with warmth and respect. I apologize for this unpleasantness. I looked past him, at my daughter, kneeling on the floor. She looked up, met my eyes. I saw the realization dawn on her, the understanding of what she had lost. Not the money, not the status, but me. I felt no triumph, no joy in their downfall, just a deep, profound sadness. I had lost my daughter long before today. This was just the confirmation. It's okay, James, I said, my voice tired. Come on, Thomas, Mr. Walker said, gently steering me away from the wreckage of Lisa and David's life. My family is having a quiet dinner at home. We would be honored to have you join us. Cynthia Walker smiled at me, her eyes kind. We would love to have you, Thomas. And that pie smells delicious. There's plenty of room at my table, James added. I took one last look at Lisa. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out, only tears. I turned away, walked with Mr. Walker towards his Rolls-Royce. As the driver opened the door for me, I realized something. Integrity and honesty might not make you rich instantly, but in the end, they are the only things that truly matter. They are the foundation of a life worth living. The fallout from that night was swift, brutal. David didn't just lose his job. He lost his reputation. The story spread like wildfire through the city's financial circles. Walker Financial launched a full investigation. The rumors of fraud were true. His career was over. No one wanted to hire him. He was radioactive. Lisa called me a few days later, her voice broken. She apologized profusely, begging for forgiveness. She told me they were going to lose the house. They couldn't afford the mortgage. David's debts were overwhelming. The bank was foreclosing. The glass monstrosity was slipping through their fingers. I listened patiently. I told her I forgave her. Forgiveness was something Sarah believed in deeply. But I also told her that things would never be the same. Trust, once broken, is like a piece of wood. You can glue it back together, but the cracks will always show. The foundation was damaged. It would take a long time to repair. I helped her financially, of course. I couldn't let my daughter be homeless. I helped her secure a small apartment, covered her basic needs. I managed to sell my own house and pay off the second mortgage, moving into a smaller, more manageable apartment myself. It was hard to leave the home I built for Sarah, but I realized the memories lived in me, not the walls. But I didn't rush back into Lisa's life. I set boundaries. I told her she needed to figure out who she was, separate from David and his ambitions. She needed to understand the true meaning of family, of respect. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of pain, a lot of resentment. David, stripped of his ambition and his prospects, turned bitter, cruel. He blamed Lisa for everything. He couldn't face the fact that his downfall was his own making. He was a man without a foundation, and he crumbled. A few months later, Lisa left David. She got a job at a local bookstore. It was a humbling experience for her. But it was also a liberation. She started to find herself again. The sweet, compassionate girl I remembered. The girl who loved sawdust and safety goggles. We started meeting for coffee, tentatively rebuilding our relationship. It was slow work, like restoring an old piece of furniture, stripping away the layers of paint and varnish to reveal the beautiful wood underneath. But it was worth the effort. We talked. We cried. We confronted the painful truths of the past few years. The next Thanksgiving, we hosted dinner at my new apartment, just the two of us. It was quiet, simple, but full of warmth. The small space was filled with the scent of roasting turkey and cinnamon-spiced apples. Lisa made the turkey, and I made the pie. Sarah's recipe. As we sat down at the small table, she reached across and took my hand. Her hand was still soft, but there was a strength in her grip that hadn't been there before. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, tears shining in her eyes, tears of gratitude, of love, for giving me a second chance, for reminding me what matters, for showing me how to build a life with integrity. "We all need second chances, sweetie," I said, squeezing her hand. "As long as we learn from our mistakes, as long as we remember the foundation, as long as we remember the foundation." I looked around the small dining room. I felt Sarah's presence, strong, comforting, smiling. I realized that Thanksgiving isn't about the food, the wine, the fancy decorations. It's not about impressing people or climbing the ladder. It's about family, loyalty, integrity. It's about making room at the table for the people who love you. And as I sat there with my daughter, I knew that I finally had enough room for forgiveness, room for healing, room for hope. And that was the greatest Thanksgiving blessing of all. Thanks for listening. If this story touched your heart, please rate it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. Your support means the world. Because your time matters.